Hi, this is Ben Grice with Ben Buys Indie Houses. What I wanted to do is take the next couple minutes to go over a contract that a customer of ours submitted to our team to review, and they wanted us to compete against the offer from the other company. Now, I'm not going to name the name of the other company, but you can see the contract right here. And so a lot of times what happens is our customers want us to compete with a lot of the offers that they are getting on their house. And the price is only one part of the equation. There are a lot of other things to consider besides just the price. A lot of the fine print that a lot of times our customers don't read when they say, hey, this company is offering more than you. We often ask, okay, well, what are the terms of that contract? And then, once we start digging into the fine print and the terms, we're able to uncover some things that we kind of ask ourselves, why would you want to sell your house if you had to go through with these terms? So we got a purchase agreement here on an offer on a house that we were competing against, 46143. You can see the purchase price is to be $160,000 payable in cash. So I circle that cash in red because we'll get to it a little bit later in this contract, but that's important. A lot of the people are reaching out to companies like mine, investors like us, because they don't want to deal with the hassles of listing with the realtor, inspections, appraisals, making fixes to houses, dealing with all of the red tape that a buyer has to go through to get approved for a bank loan. They like the speed and convenience that a cash investor can offer. So I circle cash here because that's going to be important later as we get through this. Purchase price $160, payable in cash. That's going to be important later. You should see item number 2. This offer shall expire. They made the offer on 6/16, and in my opinion, they're putting a lot of pressure on the seller to accept this offer the same day they made it. This is what we call a high pressure sales tactic. They're trying to get the seller, in this case, to sign this offer so that the seller doesn't do their due diligence. So that's a big red flag right there. None of our offers come with an expiration date or time. You'll see the conditions of this purchase are as follows. Property is sold in as-is condition. Yes, that's normal. A lot of sellers want to sell their property as-is condition. That's why they reach out to a company like mine, is because they don't want to make repairs. They don't want to make fixes. So they will sell it in as-is condition with no warranties made by the seller. That's great for the seller. You, the customer, yes, you're not making any warranties as to the condition of the house. That's great. But this is kind of contradictory where it says property is sold in as-is condition with no warranties. But then it says the seller will make the buyer aware of any known facts that affect the value of the property. But I would be hesitant of signing a contract where it's saying that you as the seller need to make the buyer aware of the value of the property. That's up to the buyer to determine the value of the property. Item D. So this says that the buyer shall submit to the seller, you, an amount equal to $1,500 as sum and consideration. Now, I'm not an attorney with any of this. I would, of course, you want to consult with your attorney. This is not legal advice in any way. That's just the disclosure I have to put out there. I'm not an attorney. Consult with your own attorney when reviewing contracts, and I am not giving any legal advice. But right here's the big red flag. It shall be submitted within 24 hours of buyer approval during the due diligence time frame as described in Section K. They don't have to submit their earnest money until 24 hours after they approve their due diligence described in Section K. This purchase agreement is subject to final approval of the property by the buyer. Okay, so they're saying this purchase agreement is subject to final approval by the buyer. And how long do they have to do that? So they have 25, not 25 days, not 25 days, 25 business days, which is over a month. So if you're looking for a quick sell and a guaranteed price and a guaranteed close, you're not going to know with this buyer until 25 business days, which is going to be a month or longer. And it's as determined in their sole discretion. So for whatever reason, they get to decide if they approve the property or not after signing this contract. And not only that, they haven't deposited earnest money until they've approved the contract. So I'm not an attorney, but I mean, I'm sure I could find an attorney to argue that this isn't a legally binding contract since there was no consideration. I don't know, you'd have to talk to your attorney, but if they're not depositing earnest money until after they approve the contract and it takes 25 business days to approve the contract, they're going to want additional access after signing this contract. Maybe you signed a contract and they haven't even seen the property. So we don't even know if this is a legitimate buyer at this price, because they still need an additional 25 business days to determine that. That's a big red flag right there. Seller and tenant, if any, will make the property accessible. So to get the buyer's ultimate approval to determine on this, you need to make the property accessible to their partners, their lenders. Well, what do they need lenders for? This is a cash transaction, but they need to show it to their lenders, inspectors, and contractors too. I mean, maybe that's part of the reason why you decided to sell to an investor, so you didn't have to deal with inspections, so you didn't have to deal with multiple showings, so you didn't have to deal with banks or lenders. All of this prior to closing. So that's something you want to keep in mind after signing a contract like this. And then in addition to this, an investor buyer shall elect at their discretion to enforce a per diem penalty of $1,000 per 24-hour period that the property is not delivered. Now, I don't know if this is actually legal, but just keep that in mind. If they wait 25 days to let you know whether or not they're going to buy the house, 25 business days, and then they say the closing's in 30 days, they've essentially maybe giving you 1 week or less than a week to move out of the house. So just be prepared for that. And if you don't move out on time, it looks like they're charging a per diem penalty not to exceed $1,000 per day. What else? Seller shall grant to buyer unlimited permission to market the property to their partners, their potential partners, their investors, and any and all other parties as deemed appropriate by the buyer. If you're fine with that, okay. But you're giving them, by signing this, unlimited permission. But then we have item 5 here. Closing date shall take place within 30 business days from the date of initial access granted by the seller. The purchase agreement is subject to the buyer's financial partner approval and is deemed void should the financing partner not accept the terms of this agreement at any time. So at any time over the next 30 business days, you're relying on some independent financial partner for approval. And if that financial partner doesn't approve this contract, it's automatically deemed void. And that earnest money, well, remember, they didn't have to deposit that earnest money until their final approval. So that $1,500 earnest money, it's not there because they didn't deposit it, because ultimately they backed out of the contract and they never approved the contract to begin with. Should buyer not deem that title is acceptable for any reasons, the buyer has complete and irrevocable discretion to consider the purchase agreement void. And then on top of that, the buyer shall have unlimited right. This is a big one. They have unlimited right and option to extend the closing date should the conditions of this agreement not be met by the seller. So they get an automatic extension. So if you're needing to get this property sold in the next 2 weeks or 30 days, Well, they have an unlimited right and option to extend. I'd be looking for a more black and white reason for them to be able to extend. If you're looking to sell to an investor for the convenience and the speed that they can provide, I don't understand why anybody would sign a contract like this when there's so much gray area, and at any time, for whatever reason, during the next 30 days, they can terminate this contract. If you're looking to sell to an investor and you want more peace of mind, so if you want to get this 160 payable in cash, then one, you want to ask for proof of funds. So they should be providing you with a bank statement proving that they have the cash to deliver on this offer. They need to remove any and all terms that state that it is conditional of showing their partners or their lenders final approval from their potential partners and investors. They need to remove any wording that says subject to financial partners approval, or it's void if the financing partner doesn't approve. So it just doesn't make any sense. If they're making a cash offer, they shouldn't need their financing partner's approval. You should ask them to deposit an amount that is non-refundable to them. So they make this offer, and to illustrate earnest and good faith in the transaction, if they don't deliver on this offer, you walk away with this earnest money. It shouldn't be deposited 24 hours, 25 days later after they approve the closing. Inspections, the property is being sold as is. If you're fine with them getting an inspection, that's fine, but just know that they can terminate the purchase agreement based on what comes back from the inspection. And it shouldn't take 25 business days to get an inspection done. I mean, we can typically get out there within 7 days and get the property inspected. So these are just some of the red flags that we find. A lot of our sellers don't compare apples to apples when selling a property. They just strictly focus on price. We try to understand what they're really needing, and they're saying, I need this to close within the next 30 days or sooner. I need this to close within the next 2 weeks. I need to sell it as is. I'm not willing to make any fixes. I don't want to deal with lenders or banks, or I want to be cash. I want to know that you have the cash to deliver on this offer, that you are guaranteeing me this close, and if you don't perform, you're going to forfeit this earnest money to me, and that you don't need any further partner's approval or inspections done. If they're going to allow us an inspection, can we possibly pay more? Yes, we can. But the whole point I'm trying to make is not all cash offers are apples to apples. And what we like to tell a lot of our sellers is, when getting a cash offer on a property, you want to ask for a large earnest money deposit down. If they're going to pay $160 for the property, they should easily have $10,000 in earnest money that they can put down, and it's non-refundable to the buyer for whatever reason. But if you're not wanting to deal with making fixes or the possible bait and switch, then make them waive all inspections. And another thing is that you want to put explicitly in the contract is make the contract not assignable. This contract is assignable because it doesn't explicitly state that it's not assignable. Because of that, this buyer can assign this contract to a third party that you have no relationship with, and now you're relying on that third party buyer to come up with the funding. You don't know who this buyer is. You haven't vetted this buyer. Now, for whatever reason, you're left with the property and you're packed up to move, and you signed a lease to move somewhere else. And so these are things just that we've found when competing with a lot of other buyers in the marketplace here in Indy. A lot of the fine print that our sellers don't take the time to understand without actually realizing what all comes with that. So I hope this video was educational for you of just some of the things before signing an offer from a from a cash investor, some of the things to consider. And if at any time you'd like us to review a contract or you'd like us to compete on an offer, I'd encourage you to visit our website, benbuysindyhouses.com, fill out the form, and we can get in touch with you, can make an offer for you, review any contract that you'd like us to make sure that you understand what you're signing. We just wish you the best. Hope this video was helpful for you. Thanks.